This is Fashion 100, Sewing for Fashion Design 1. This is sample number 19, Machine Gathering. I've got two pieces that I need to cut out in my notebook. I've got the first piece. This will be the piece that we're mounting the machine gathering on. So I've gone ahead, I've cut that out. There is a notch missing on it. I want to fold it in half along the seam edge and just give it a little clip right there in the middle. This will help me line up all of my gathering. So there's my little clip right there. On the other side, it's cut on the fold right here, which is what I have. And I also want to put a little clip there to help me manage the volume. And that's it for the pattern. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by running my gather stitches. Gather stitches are run with the seam allowance or the seam length at the longest stitch. So I've reset the machine to 5 and there is no back stitching. We're going to begin by stitching a line, and we're going to be stitching it at 5/8. So I'm going to begin and stitch 5/8 all the way down. I'm going to be stitching a second line either a 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch away. It is important that you do 2 rows of stitching. If I do just one, when I pull my bobbin thread, the seam is going to fold over on itself and become a real pain to try and deal with. So I'm going to begin stitching the second row. It should be into the seam allowance 1/8 to a 1/4 inch away. I now have 2 rows of basting. The best thread to pull for this is the bobbin thread because the tension is usually slightly looser. I'm going to take my 2 pieces of fabric and I'm going to line up those 2 notches right at the center here, and I'm going to stick a pin in to help me control the volume. This way I know my ruffle is going to be nice and balanced. I'm going to be taking my fabric, this is my bobbin side, and I'm going to be pulling it up. I'm going to pull it up to match that other piece of fabric. And on this, you're probably going to be pulling it quite a bit. There it is. It now matches. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Pin. Now, it doesn't have to match perfectly at this point. We're going to move it around and make it match better. So there's my sample, and you can see that I've got this side flat, this side not. So what I'm going to be doing is spreading those gathers out and working them so they're nice and even across the fabric. As I go along and I think I've got it, I'm going to pin. Okay, as I come into this side, for myself, one way I like to help hold it is to wrap the thread around the pin a little bit to keep it from moving. This will help me hold it together as I'm sewing. So I have one side complete, now we're going to do the other side. You want to continue making that gathering nice and consistent. Okay, I'm coming up on the end. I want to nail it in so it doesn't slide while I'm trying to sew it. There it goes. Make sure it's smooth, and I'm going to wrap. Okay, there it is. I just unthreaded my needle. We're going to quickly thread that, and then I'm ready to change my stitch length back to a normal stitch length. I'm setting it at 2.5, and I'm ready to stitch. I'm going to want to stitch at 5/8. Now, you always stitch with the gather side up. That way you can adjust the gathers as you stitch. In the best of all possible worlds, all your stitching would be inside the seam, but that doesn't always happen that way. So be flexible. Back stitch at the end. There it is. Trim your threads. And now, because I've gone ahead and I've stitched the whole thing down, I can go ahead and trim all the threads, including the basting threads. So I've made sure I've pulled all my pins out. Usually when I do this, I like to check and see if I'm seeing any threads, and if not, if I am, I can pull them out. I'm not seeing that much on this, so I'm going to just go for it. No more threads. I'm going to head over to the iron and I'm going to press along here, but I don't want to smush my volume of my gathers. When you're done, you should have nice, even, consistent gathers. The seam should be straight. It should be pressed above, but not flattened in the gather area. And you can go ahead at this point and finish this seam allowance in whatever manner you want. An option on this is also you can top stitch or do anything else to keep that seam going the direction that you want it to go. And that completes this sample.